Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 68 of the I Rock Knits podcast. It is the 5th sunny day in a row here in Minnesota, and although we got 2 inches of snow overnight, we did have to shovel, and it is completely gone off the driveways and all of the streets. The sun is so much warmer and intense this time of year as we go into spring that the roads, that black tar just melts the snow right off, which is really nice. So welcome to everyone. Come on in for your hug. So nice to have you all with me here today. I really want to thank you for coming back each and every time I do a podcast. It really makes me it fills up my heart and my soul that I have people who constantly watch the podcast and continually come back and comment and say nice things and engage with me a little bit about things that they kind of resonated with on the podcast. So I really want to thank you all for that. What am I wearing today? Today I am wearing my Taco Tuesday tee, a little bit of foreshadowing into a possible new design that's coming out tomorrow. And I will be showing that later in the podcast. I should probably mention here that I am wearing my purple glasses today. I had an eye exam on Monday and I needed a new prescription. And the last 2 years that I've gone, my eyes have changed a little bit each time. But I had a new doctor this time, and he said that we were overcorrecting my distance vision to help with my close-up vision. And some of you know that I do this all the time to read through my bifocals. And I've been doing that on a computer for months. And sometimes when I have to see something, I have to tip my head back to get into that progressives part of my eyes. So I am having new lenses put in my orange frames, which means for 2 weeks I cannot wear my orange frames. And I wear these occasionally, just not all that often. They are kind of a purpley raspberry color and they're a little bit smaller, so I can see more of my frame out of my vision, but I just thought I should mention it, that these are not new, they're old. I got 2 pair 3 or 4 years ago when I had a new prescription, and so they're kind of my backup pair, but I will go back to my orange, I'm sure. I have left the house 3 times in the last week, and that is more than I have done in the last 5 months, other than to go to TRIA, the orthopedic center here in the Twin Cities. My husband and I have decided to get some new furniture. And so we masked up and went over to the big furniture place here in the southern part of the Twin Cities. And we looked for a new couch and a new recliner, a new chair. We have a living room as you walk into our house that we use as our family room. That's where we spend all of our time. And my husband is getting tired of me being in the recliner and him not having one. And I don't share very well. So we're going to look at one of those couches that has a recliner in it, so that when we do want to watch movies in the evening, or he comes in to sit down and watch something with me, he doesn't have to lay perpendicular on the couch and then turn his head to watch TV, which as we get older is harder and harder to do, to lay with your head turned and then get up afterwards. And and we're also looking for a new desk and credenza for our office. We've had our furniture almost since we moved in here, or a couple of years after, and it's going on 15 years. It's seen some hard wear with teenagers in the house back in the day, and so we thought we would start looking. And then on Sunday we went out to another little small town west of here that has a large furniture store, and I think we found something. So that's pretty exciting. We're picking some fabrics to put on it. Of course, I'm leaning toward the reds, the orange reds, and burgundies and maroons, which is kind of what we had before. But it's been it gives you something to look forward to, something to do a little bit. He doesn't care too much about what it looks like. He just wants to be comfortable. So I said, you can pick it. I don't care that much about how comfortable it is, because when you're in a recliner, everything's good, right? When you can sit, put your feet up and knit, it's all good. So that's what we've been doing the last couple of days. I rode along with him yesterday as he had to return an Amazon package to Kohl's. Then he went and got some car parts, and we got some groceries, and I just stayed in the car and did some knitting while he ran in and got things. So I have left the house. Corey is up and moving. It is 12 weeks since my foot surgery as of kind of today, because I had it the last day of November, so December, January, February, and this was the time when I was supposed to get my freedom for my foot, right? I will give you your freedom at 12 weeks, and the foot is still giving me quite a bit of trouble. If I do too much, if I walk too much, if I stand on it too much, it really aches. And it's swollen. It's swollen on the inside and on the top of the foot. So I put out a little plea to some of you on Instagram, kind of to call out to anyone who follows me, saying, has anyone had this plantar fasciitis surgery where they snip the plantar, you know? And a lot of people got back to me and said it takes 6 months. Any type of injury to the foot where they do that kind of surgery. And I guess I've had my knees replaced, so I'm thinking, you know, those are major bone repairs, and at 12 weeks I was out walking and trying to strengthen the knee and, you know, do some things, getting up and down, working on stairs and physical therapy. And with this, he didn't even prescribe any physical therapy to me. And so I think it's just going to be a longer kind of time here for me to get through that. So I'm trying I'm trying to take it slow and just say, you know what, if it's going to be 6 months, okay, I'll just do a little bit more each day and see how it goes. Yesterday it was feeling really good, even though we walked through a furniture store on Saturday. Of course, when you're in a furniture store and you kind of know what you're looking for, you only have to go to a certain section. But we had, you know, we'd walked down the street, several cars, and and I said, oh, it's feeling pretty good. And then by that evening, it was hurting again. The thumbs are doing well. The right one still gives me some fits. I knit and I finished a sweater. On the Whip Confession podcast, I talked about my Kahoot sweater, which is a rainbow sweater that I was gonna do, and it had all kinds of issues. The knitting of that one, it was partly a prototype where I was working out numbers, and I thought, you know what, do I want it or do I just want to rip it out? And I decided, I want it, you know, I'll just finish it up. I'll do short sleeves on it. One of the sleeves is significantly smaller than the other sleeve. And it had to be steeked, so I couldn't try it on. I could measure it and say, oh, that's gonna be really tight on my bicep. But I decided to just go ahead and finish the sleeves, take it in, have my gal at the dry cleaners in town here sew it for me so I could steek it. So I did do that. I'll put a little video in of steeking that sweater. I am steeking my Owl's sweater today. I am going to be cutting up the center on the white cotton yarn that I have basted under, over. And then on either side, right along my edge where I have knit my steek stitches, I have also put a white piece of thread or yarn. The reason that I do that is because I have a seamstress sew these stitches up and down real close together on both sides of that center line. My sewing machine is not good enough to handle knitted fabric and it jams up underneath all the time. So I have a gal at the dry cleaners in our town who allows me to bring in my sweater and she stitches it for me. So I think you're gonna be able to see pretty well that that is stitched right there along that seam. She has just, well, it's not really a seam, it's just a gully. So I'm just gonna cut in between those all the way up. I will put my hand underneath my sweater to make sure that I don't cut anything below while I'm cutting. And it's not too difficult to cut. I'm using a really sharp, small scissors, so I can't go too quickly or get outside of those lines, but I'm just gonna follow that white line. And then this part will all just eventually fall away. And I can pick up the stitches along this gray all the way up the button band, and that part will fold back so that I'll have a really nice edge there, as well as I'll be able to tack that under if I want to, or cover it with bias tape. So I'm just gonna keep cutting. all the way up. That will just pull apart. Hand underneath. Really sharp scissors makes it super easy to just keep cutting. Look down. Try to get it real close. Near the top here, I had some increases for the yoke, so the lines don't seem to go super straight. I had to just follow the stitches the best I could so that this will come out even. And then up at the pretty part here, where we're gonna go right through to the very top. So excellent, all done. Now I'll just sit and clean this up a little bit with my fingers, get some of those white threads off so they don't get all over, but you'll be able to tell that I will be able to fold that back after picking up along there and knitting my button bands toward the center. I plan to use this ribbed color work to go this way on the button band. So it will go horizontal or vertical instead of horizontal. Thanks. So I finished taking all that little white threads off of there. And as you can see, this is sewn just about a 1/4 inch in on this side. And I will then be able to take out by pulling the white cotton thread out of here. The reason I use the cotton thread is that the wool fibers can kind of get sticky and it's just easier to pull on the cotton. So, and it also comes away from the edges. When you get ready to pull it, it just falls off because it's not sticking anywhere. So I'll just pull that out and then I'll go and pick up my button band. I have some really nice straight lines here to pick up next to. So I'll pick up 3 stitches out of every 4 stitches all the way along this button band. And that should give me a pretty good ratio for knitting that button band. So you can see, but it doesn't fit. The arms are too small. I'm gonna have to give it to someone with really thin arms. And I don't know if that's my mother. I wouldn't say that I have thin arms, but they're not gigantic. They're probably average, I think 11 inches, something like that. So I was really disappointed because I finished the button bands, I did all the sewing, I tried it on, and it's just really too snug to wear. So it will make a nice sample. It's done. It's out of the whip pile, which is actually just feels really good, even though it kind of was a bit of a mess too. And I haven't decided if I'll actually sew down the inside of the button bands and take the time to sew on some bias tape and do the finishing well, but we'll see. It's done. I just feel I feel so much better about getting some things up. Then I started working on that cowl. It's the Flying V's cowl. And I set it aside with like the bottom hem and 2 rows done. And I think the reason I did is because this is one of those patterns that has like 10 or 12 pages and a ton of options. Like you can do chart 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the next page, do chart 5, 6, 7, 8. You can make leg warmers, you can make fingerless mitts, you can make a cowl, you can make, and it's kind of just overwhelming in its layout because you have to figure out, and I couldn't even tell where I started, right? Like what chart was I doing? So I had to read through all the pages, and I did figure the charts out. It has an interesting chart construction. It would be a wide chart, but instead of charting all of the knit stitches, she put little black boxes, which means 4 knit stitches. And I have not seen a chart like that before where she has black boxes. That means 4 knits, so the chart is actually narrower than what you're knitting. Then you get to that black box and you have to knit 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was interesting. I like learning new things, and this is kind of a challenging pattern just because the repeats are far apart, 13 stitches. So you have to carry colors the entire 13 stitches. And so you have to trap them because 13 stitches is a long way to go on a cowl. So it has some, challenges to it, but I decided yesterday that I was just going to sit down and I'm glad I did, because I'm really learning some things by knitting it. So that's kind of fun. Okay. I have not talked about audiobooks for the last several podcasts, and that is because I had a couple of duds in a row, right? I just wasn't feeling it, and I maybe wasn't doing a good job of listening, or wasn't in the right frame of mind, but oh, do I have a couple of good audiobook recommendations for you today. I finished City of Girls, which is by Elizabeth Gilbert, who's quite a popular writer. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which many of you have probably read or seen the movie, and then The Signature of All Things. But this one is a fiction story set in New York City in the 1940s, and it's told from the perspective of an older woman as she looks back on her youth with both pleasure and regret. It has a lot of female sexuality and promiscuity, as well as the idiosyncrasies of true love. So yes, it is, these women are enjoying their lives in all the ways. So if that would be something that you wouldn't want to read, I can't recommend it then, but I just thought it was excellent. In 1940, 19-year-old Vivian Morris has just been kicked out of Vassar College owing to her lackluster freshman year performance. Her affluent parents sent her to Manhattan to live with her Aunt Peg, who owns a flamboyant, crumbling midtown theater called the Lily Playhouse. There, Vivian is introduced to an entire cosmos of unconventional and charismatic characters, from the fun-chasing showgirls to a sexy male actor, a grand dame actress, a lady killer writer, and no-nonsense stage manager. So it is her life in the past, so she's telling it. So she goes back in time and tells the story of what it was like to be in New York City in the 1940s, living in a playhouse with her aunt, around a lot of characters. And it was just an easy, enjoyable read. She gets herself in trouble. She does some things that we probably wouldn't approve of. Certainly her parents don't approve of. But just a wonderful story, a great telling. I definitely would recommend it. It's called City of Girls. The second one I read is called The Book of Lost Names, and it is by Kristin Harmel, and it is a World War II book, and I didn't know that when I started it. I can only listen to so many World War II Jewish concentration camp, war story, love stories. I'm just kind of, it's saturating to me. It kind of gets under my skin. And so had I known that going in, I probably wouldn't have listened to it. On the other hand, it was excellent. Really good. So let me tell you, Lena Mizell, a retired librarian in Florida, is reading the newspaper one morning when she freezes. Her eyes lock on a photograph of a book she hasn't seen in 65 years, a book she recognizes as the Book of Lost Names. The accompanying article discusses the looting of libraries by the Nazis across Europe during World War II, an experience Lena remembers well, and the search to reunite people with the text stolen from them so long ago. The book in the photograph, an 18th century religious text thought to have been taken from France in the waning days of the war, is one of the most fascinating cases. So she goes back in time. So they're really similar books in their layout. This older woman, she's in her 90s, goes back in time and she sees this book that has deep meaning to her, and she knows that she needs to fly immediately to Berlin and get her hands on this book. And it's the Book of Lost Names, and she then tells her story of her time in the war, fleeing from France with her mother. Her father has been taken. She is Jewish, and the story of how she helped during the resistance. Just very interesting. The whole premise about this book and its, storyline was fascinating. Not something that I'd heard before, so it wasn't the same old love story during World War II that you would, but there is a love story. There are familial relationships, and then the resistance, the characters in the resistance. So again, another really good read, very easy to listen to, kind of pulled you along and through it. So 2 in a row that were just really good. So if you want to look those up at your local library or get them on Libby to listen to, put them on your reading list, I would highly recommend. This morning I started a new one as I was getting ready, and I usually don't kind of say this is what I'm listening to, try to keep this section a little shorter, but I started Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, who wrote A Man Called Uwe. I am only 2 chapters in. So good. Really fascinating. So if you want to look that one up too, I'm sure in 2 weeks I will be telling you how I really enjoyed that book. I have 2 quick recipes to share this week. The first one is beef and barley soup. We made it yesterday and it was delicious. I ordered barley from a farm on Amazon, so I got a packet, Ziploc topped cardboardish material packet, just brown paper packet with kind of a label on the front, pearl barley. One of the things that Ross and I did in the last couple of weeks was clean the kitchen pantry, and as well as the spice rack. And I would like you all to guess what our oldest item in the pantry or the spice rack was. I'll give you a second. Oh, you're being so generous. 2019 is not the oldest item that we had. So 2010, I had cornmeal in a canister that had never been opened. That was in the back of the pantry. I found it hard to believe. Sometimes you buy things that are outdated when you purchase them. I doubt that this was the case, and we also found a couple of spices that were from 2012 and 2016. So we cleaned everything out, threw things away, recycled, organized. Ross wiped out. That's why we started the process, is because the honey had kind of spilled on the pull-out shelf. We have a double open cabinet built into our kitchen, and then drawers that pull out for our pantry, 4 large drawers. And so we cleaned all of that out. Well, one of the things we threw away was a box of barley, and it had been opened and sitting there, and I don't remember if it was outdated or not, but I thought, I haven't made barley soup since last winter or the winter before, and although it's a grain, there are just things that you just say to yourself, you know, the 89 cents that's left in this box is probably not worth keeping. Oh, the pantry and the spice cupboard look so nice. I bet I threw away 40 spices. How many times a year do you use cream of tartar? I haven't made snickerdoodles in many years. So there were just some in there, and we had salt and pepper canisters and coffee. Oh, the coffee. We do not drink coffee at our house. We are soda drinkers, Diet Coke for our caffeine. And that's a whole nother story, but we have coffee on the shelf for when my parents or his parents used to come, and otherwise we don't take it down. And yeah, there was a whole can of coffee up there that had never been opened. I just said, they haven't been here, so we threw out a lot of stuff. But I ordered new barley, and I ordered a few new spices. I used Penzeys spices, and those came, and I put them into the cabinet, and it still only filled it about a quarter full. It was packed to the gills in there. It just feels so nice to have that job done. And I know a lot of you are going to say that that's one of the things you did during quarantine, was clean out that spice rack. I had them alphabetized in my spice rack. I had done that one time when I had wiped out the counter. I had alphabetized the spices when I put them back in, so they're a lot easier to find, and the most commonly used ones in the front. But anyway, the barley. So we had new barley came, and so I said, yep, we're going to make beef and barley soup. It is one of Ross's favorites. It is not a favorite of mine. I'm not a huge fan of barley or quinoa. I think it's a texture thing for me. I don't know. I can take it or leave it. And I certainly don't want barley or quinoa in my salad. But I also don't like nuts in my brownies or my cookies. So I think it is for me just a texture thing. Don't argue with me about this. Please don't come in and try to convince me that I really should. I'm going to be 60. My old ways are kind of set. And I'm sure there are many of you who love barley and quinoa and have the most delicious recipe. I have tried them. It's okay. We can all beg to, disagree on this one. But some of you make comments to me that are not hurtful in their tone, but kind of a little bit trying to convince me of something or set me straight a little bit. And I think, do you know how I'm reading this? It's not a negative thing, but it's like, well, this is how I would have done it, right? Or this is how I do it, or my grandma did it this way kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? You do you. I have never been judgmental about the way in which you run your life. You can do it however you like. So we made this soup, and it has carrots and barley, and we cooked down some beef for stew, which is not the best cut of meat, but if you cook it down all day, it gets really tender. So I cooked it down in some Penzeys broth that comes in one of those little jars. They're plastic, but it's like condensed broth I have for chicken and beef and pork in my refrigerator. Anyway, so I put some tablespoons of that in with the meat and then cooked it down in the crock pot all day. And I made carrots, and then I sauteed mushrooms and celery and onions in a big pan and dumped that in. And then I had 4 potatoes, little teeny fingerlings that were about to go. So I cut them up and threw them in. The recipe did not call for that, but anyway. So we had beef and barley soup, and then I made biscuits in the bundt pan. Have you done that before? Have I talked about that on the podcast? Where you take a can of refrigerated biscuits or biscuits from your freezer or bread dough from your freezer or whatever you have. You can make your own. And then you cut them into 4s, and you melt a little butter in the bottom of a bundt pan. You just put it on low on your stove for about 30 seconds till the butter melts, and you throw all those pieces of the biscuits in, and you can use any seasoning you want. So I usually use Italian seasoning, but last night I used a little garlic salt in the butter. And then you bake it for, I don't know, 14 minutes, and you have like a pull apart ring, and there's only 2 of us. But we just love that. It's quick, it's easy. You know, the whole thing maybe takes 20 minutes from start to finish. And you have like a warm bread on a winter night, and you didn't have to make it yourself, and you didn't have to get out the flour or dough or whatever. So that's what we had. It was delicious. Really good soup. I did put a little cornstarch in it to thicken it up, because that's what I would prefer. Ross doesn't care if it's real broth, but I do like if it's a little thicker. You could certainly put some beans in there. I think that would be delicious too. And it had a couple of cans of diced tomatoes in it, which gives it really robust flavor as well. I will put that recipe in the Ravelry show notes under recipes, and I will see if I can find a link to it on the internet so that I can put it in the show notes below here too, an actual link to that recipe. The other thing I've been eating this last week or two is that I'm trying to eat better, lose a little weight. I'm trying some intermittent fasting, where you just don't eat for the first few hours of your day. I would have no trouble giving up breakfast. I have no trouble giving up supper. I just need to eat throughout the day, and I'm a big snacker. So I just decided to give it a try. Watched some videos by Jason Fung. Both the Periscoping sisters have had some really good success doing that, and I thought, you know, that may be something that would be easy for me, because I can fairly easily skip a meal. So I have been trying that for the last week, so I don't eat my lunch, brunch, whatever until, you know, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And reminder, I'm a late sleeper inner, right? I stay up really late, which is when I do a lot of my snacking, from like 7 o'clock until 1 a.m. I'll be like, oh, I just should have some popcorn or some chocolate. Anyway, so I've been eating later, and I've been making this Instagram recipe where you just crack a couple of eggs and put them in the bottom of a pan and let them saute. And I have a video of this entire process, because I took it the other day. You throw a tortilla on top, and then you can put some cheese, flip it and put some cheese on it. You flip it over, or even into 4ths. I have seen people do. You can add bacon if you choose to. I'm not a huge bacon fan, and I don't want to cook bacon and sausage. But anyway, it gives me some protein, and then you can serve it with some salsa. It's just delicious. It's been really good. I had it again yesterday, and I thought, I don't want to overdo it, because that's what I tend to do. Like, I eat peanut butter bread, peanut butter sandwich every day for 2 weeks. Or I eat it for lunch for 2 weeks. Or peanut butter toast, or peanut butter bagel, or cream cheese bagel, whatever. all the carbs, you know, just think all the carbs, and then that's what Corey's eating. So I've been really trying to do some protein, and this is easy. You don't have to scramble it. You just let it cook and flip it over. It's just simple. Probably I don't need to give you an actual recipe for that, but it might put a little idea in your head for something fun to make for yourself or your kids or husband. It's quick and easy and gives you some protein and some really good flavor. If I had the inclination, I often will fry up some peppers and onions for tacos and things, so I could throw that also, or spinach in with this quesadilla, let's call it. If you don't cook the tortilla very long in the pan, it's almost like roll-upable, like a burrito. If you cook it for longer in the pan and that tortilla gets more crunchy, it's more like a quesadilla. I think that's what they would say. So those are your recipes. I have not done podcast recommendations for a while either, and I have 3 for you this week. And it's not that I haven't been watching or listening or looking for some new ones, but I did find some that maybe you already know about, and they're just new to me, or you haven't seen them either. So Anders Mill Knits. It was the combined last names of 2 people who were in business before, Anderson and Mills something, Miller something, Anders Mill. And it is with AKA Millie 907. That is her Ravelry and Instagram name, I believe. And she's on episode 56. So she's been doing this for a while, but it goes way back, and then she kind of restarted, and she had a couple of guests, which made me look at the screen and go, oh, there are 3 people in that podcast. I don't think I've ever seen that with 3. Stephanie, who is the Hotpinksocks, who did the Hotpinksocks reviews there for a while. And then Steph of KnittingSamurai, who used to have a podcast back in the day that used to watch all the time, and she has 2 little boys, and she has Adore Knits, which is her Etsy business. So the 3 of them, Stephanie and Steph and Emily, did this podcast together. So you might want to go out and look at that one, Anders Mill Knits, and they are trying to garner new subscribers. And then I found Jay's Knit Purl Jam. Some of you will have been watching this lady forever. How did I not know about her? Her name is Joyce, and she has been podcasting for 7 years. And in 2013, she did an opening, her first kind of episode, and her husband, I think, must have been filming her, because he walked around the room as she showed this craft room that they built onto their house. They built a whole extra room onto the back of their house, and it became her crafting space. And that video has 33,000 views on it. And I was like, how have I never watched this? So I watched several of her early ones, and she is a crocheter and a knitter, and she does tutorials where she walks you through the knitting of a sweater, and they're really well done. Right now they're knitting a new sweater in 2021, but you could go back and start knitting along with her. And then she calls it like episode 159-1, part 1 of the sweater, part 2 of the sweater, part 3 of the sweater, that kind of thing, and walks you through that. So it's a podcast, but she also does like video tutorials for different things. Really fun, just excellent energy. And she's got a lot of crochet videos out there, and I know some of you also crochet, so you might want to check out that, Jay's Knit Purl Jam. And then there's a brand new one, and her name is Honeybird Studio, and she's on episode 3, and she is Jenny out of British Columbia, Canada. And she is a young knitwear designer just starting out. I think, did I look that she has 10 patterns out there, maybe? And she knits some beautiful things, a lot of sweaters, and she's got some hat designs, so you might want to take a look at that. She is Honeybird Studio everywhere on Instagram and Ravelry, and her name is Jenny, so take a look at those. I have a sweater of the week this week. Not a sweater, but it is my Zig Zag Poncho, and it is the garment that I finished teaching my 50 Shades of Sweaters class with. At the end, it's the Z. We're to the Z's. We've gotten through 68 episodes. I've done a sweater almost every episode, I think, and I made a list of new things to talk about coming up here, and I think I came up with 10 or 11. How many are on this list? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 new sweaters that I can add to the list that I don't talk about in the class or that are brand spanking new. So we can do 16 more podcast episodes, which will get us 32 weeks further in the year. So that should work going forward. And then hopefully I'll finish some more things as we go. I love this. I just love this poncho. I've worn it a number of times. The thing about this is that it can be used as a coat or a jacket, and you can just throw it over the sweater that you have on, which is how I wore it at Rhinebeck one year when it was really cold. I wore my lemongrass sweater, and then we put on hats, and I put this on over the top of everything. So it's just a great thing to kind of have as a jacket or an over thing that you could throw in your car or put in your back door closet. It is knit with Aran weight yarn, and it is by Carrie Brenner, and she doesn't design anymore from what I can see and hasn't designed in years, but this came out in a book called Hand Knit Holidays. And I looked on Amazon to see if that book is still available, and it is, and it's like a $24 book. However, there are used copies on Amazon for $1.95 and for $5.95. The thing about this poncho is that it has a matching dog coat to go with it. So it's a really kitschy design. I really like that. This is some of the colors that I used are very similar to those, the ones that she used in the in a design and on Ravelry. I contacted Stephen B, who had a vendor at the time in this yarn. The yarn that I used was called Alchemy Yarns of Transformation, and that is what she used as well. Is an Aran weight yarn. You knit it on a US size 8, and it took a ton of yardage. But the yarn was impossible to find. I knit it in 2013, so a number of years ago, and the book came out, I don't know, 2005 or something. It had been around for a long time. So finding the yarn was difficult, but Stephen had a vendor who carried Alchemy, and then they ordered the yarn in the colors that I wanted for me at the time. So you would have to find a yarn that would work. You would have to find a yarn that would work for you, but the content of this yarn is 55% mohair and 45% wool. So it's super warm. 145 yards in 100 grams. So it's, you know, a heavy yarn, and then it has that mohair in it. It is not next to skin soft, I would not say at all, but it's got this big turned collar, and the colors were so vibrant, and it has just worn really well. It is definitely got a halo. There's definitely a halo to it. Anyway, when I teach the class, this is the last kind of garment that I get to, and I'm feeling pretty punchy because we're usually about 3 hours in to this class where we've taken a break and we've done a little try it on session halfway through, and I get to the end and I say, you know, you can wear just about anything you want to. You just need to find your own sense of style and what works for you, and you can turn anything you've knit into a wearable garment. And then I pull this Zig Zag Poncho down and turn it into a sundress, and everyone laughs, and we kind of finish up the class in that way. I think that it is super funny and cute that you would never probably do that, but if you pull it down even further, you can get yourself a great zigzag skirt. So multiple uses, multiple ways to wear it. That big collar really makes for a nice waistband if you need it to. And everybody laughs and thinks, oh, you know, that's Crazy Corey thinking you can wear your poncho as multiple garments. So I thought it would be fun to share that with all of you today. It certainly is a really fun piece to look at and to knit. I love knitting chevrons. You guys know I love chevrons. I have a new design coming out tomorrow, and it has to do with tacos. When I first released this Taco Tuesday tee, people were, you know, going along for the fun, right? They were like, oh, that's really cute, that's funny. It says tacos, tacos, tacos around it, and then it has these little tacos with little tomatoes and lettuce and meat. And then a little red and white check, and I knit this one in cotton, so I put it on today because I had a couple of people reach out and say to me, you know, I don't want to knit a sweater with tacos on it, but I love tacos and I would wear something with tacos on it. Would you ever design something that was smaller? And when this video goes live, this pattern will also be live, so at midnight tonight or whenever I get this uploaded. And here is the tacos hat. And I put little hearts and little tacos, and you've got a little bit of meat and a little green lettuce and some red tomatoes there and some little red checkerboards. And I did it in a similar palette, something bright and colorful, but you could certainly do it in whatever palette you choose. If you like blues, do it in blues. If you like purples, do it in, you know, deep purple or red, whatever you prefer. And then I also did it in a cowl. So we've got, when I sent it to Amber to do the photography, I had to mark the back seam of every piece so that she would not put it on the model in the wrong way. And so Heidi is once again my model for this pattern. And it is a kitschy piece. I don't really expect everybody to dive all into kind of my sense of humor and what I think is, you know, something that you would wear like any of the KnitWords items. But I did think it was fun to knit up and have available for people. So this is called the Taco Tuesday hat and the Taco Tuesday cowl. And it will be, there will be a coupon code available in my newsletter to those of you that have subscribed over there. And so you can get it for a deep discount, both items. I've also put it together as a set on Ravelry, so it's called an ebook, so both patterns are together, and I have discounted that long term to be both patterns for $7. So if you are looking for the dog word set, the Betweenity set, and you want both the patterns or all three of the patterns, you can get those in ebook form, which means you only have to add one thing to your cart and both patterns jump in there and you can check out. And I have reduced the price if you buy all of them as opposed to just buying an item individually. So Heidi and Amber went for tacos this weekend, and she wrote me a note and said they drove 1 hour each way to their favorite taco place to have tacos. And I said, Heidi should have had the hat and the cowl to wear to the taco place. So if you are a taco lover, you celebrate Cinco de Mayo on May 5th, or you celebrate National Taco Day on October 4th, then you need to have this for those days when you are out and about and going for tacos. Or if you have someone who works at a taco restaurant, I just think it's kind of kitschy. It would be a really fun Christmas gift to give to someone that, you know, loves tacos. It is a cute hat. I knit it in brown sheep again in the sport weight. I was working with brown sheep all fall when I was doing a lot of this prep work prior to my surgery. So I was getting all of these items ready, right? I got the Very Merry Christmas Advent shawl ready, and then I had the 3 Betweenity, the hat, the cowl, and the mitten set, and then I had the 2 dog words, and then I had the 2 tacos. I have a couple more coming in the next 2 weeks, and they were all, I was prepping them all and trying to get everything ready so that when I had my surgeries, if I couldn't knit or I couldn't type, things were ready to go. And so that's kind of why this has turned into every 2 weeks I have something coming out, because I knew I was going to have this kind of 3-month period, well, from September when I had my left hand done until now. So it's really been about 6 months that I have been trying to pump out some patterns to get those things out there. I will say that we are in the midst of doing taxes, all we designers, and I noticed that Chantel of Knititude this weekend put a thing out on Instagram, pulling her hair out, trying to do her taxes on Etsy and figuring out how much money, you know, because if you have multiple sites and you're a small business, well, she's a big business, but I'm a small business. And this is the first year that I will have made a little income from this design business in 4 years. When you first start out and you're selling patterns and you don't sell a lot, It's really hard to make money at $6 a pop or $5 a pop. And then I wrote 2 books, which I invested significant amounts of money into. It was just a big investment to get started. And then the website came, right? So a year ago, I invested in a website, which is a big expense, and happens to be my tech editor who did all my design on my website. But then we decided this year to make my website a store. So that adds another expense because you have to put all your patterns over there. So I'm slowly getting those up because you have to put pictures in and a descriptor, and then you have to have a price, and you have to have that all set up in a storefront where you're going to collect, taxes. Oh, so it has just been, I've just had a lot of expense with that. And I worked for 12 months full time, all day, every day, on the weekends. I don't take days off. Now, I don't get up and walk into the office at 8 in the morning and leave at 5 in the afternoon, right? But I walk into the office at 10 in the morning and don't leave until 1 in the morning some days. You do a lot of pattern support, a lot of social media, a lot of website stuff. And so if you take all my expenses, which you can expense out, your office and your yarn purchases, I'm building a long-term business. And the reason that I'm saying that is this year, our tax man, my husband has an accountant and tax person that works with his finances, so I now have Larry too. And he, Larry said if going to take another loss, like if she's going to take a loss again this year, then she needs a business plan and she needs to write it up and prove that she is not just running a business for you guys to take a write-off. And that has never been my intention, but the IRS wouldn't know that, right? So I had to write a business plan. And I didn't go to business school, right? I was a teacher and I have my master's degree in developmental reading. So I had to write a business plan, which I've never done before, and I had to look into a lot of businesses and how they're doing things. And my goal long term is to have a lot of patterns out there that eventually generate revenue over time, right? So my old patterns from 4 years ago could still sell, and I could still have that income generated going forward, even though I'm putting a lot more time and energy into it up front. So it was just interesting to me because I have had a couple of you reach out to me and say, would you help me? And I am happy to do that. But I also need to be transparent, I think, and upfront about, I sell quite a few patterns, right? But I am not Caitlin Hunter, Stephen West, Andrea Mowry, Hohi Locatelli, who sell thousands of patterns every day and every week and every month, year in and year out, and they can live off of that salary. And I think there are probably 8 or 10 that can do that live off the salary that they make. And they're also teaching to supplement. So they're traveling and they're teaching in order to supplement their income that they're making on $6 patterns. And I'm not going to get into that, whole patterns are underpriced, soapbox. But I did want to share because just recently I had someone reach out and they wanted to put a pattern out there. And that is great. Everyone, the more the merrier, right? I will help you do that. But if you are thinking that you want to have a design business or a knitting business, there is more money in other areas of the knitting industry. Teaching, there's more money in teaching if you could get the gigs, and there's more money in knitting for hire, although it's not a lot of money, but there is some money to be made in knitting for hire if you're fast and you're technically accurate. There's some money to be made there for people who want to quit their jobs and stay home and do something else in the knitting industry. Designing patterns and selling them on the internet for $5 and $6 and $7 each is not going to grow your wealth. So anyway, I may edit most of that out of here, but I just wanted to be really upfront that I've been doing it for a long time. Some money coming in every month, but my bills go out every month as well. I just paid my Ravelry bill this morning. It was well, just it was over $50, right, that I had to pay for Ravelry this morning. And that's because I have to pay for every pattern a fee, 3.5% fee, as well as a transaction to PayPal fee. And then you have to pay PayPal. So, you know, just, I really enjoy the computer work. I really enjoy helping people. I enjoy the process of thinking of pattern ideas. I have notebooks full of ideas to move forward that I can't even work through fast enough. So I can't complain about the job I have right now, right? It's allowing me to stay home and make a little money and invest in a little business for myself, and that feels good. But that writing of the business plan was just an interesting thing that I had to do. Ross took all my papers and all his papers to Larry on Friday, and Larry said, "You did a good job on your business plan." I don't know that anyone will ever read it. Got in the mail a giant box of bags this week from Sandy. And I've met Sandy, and she has sent bags before. And she had sent me an email and said, "I'm going to send you some bags." So I have a giveaway to do. Oh my Lord, wait until you guys see this. So I'm going to run an Instagram giveaway, and I'm going to run a Ravelry giveaway. That should cover most people, generally speaking. You should be able to get yourself on Instagram for a week or two if you've never been on it, at least to enter. If you're not on Ravelry, otherwise you can go to the Ravelry group and enter. I'm going to put these into, I think, one category. So if you don't want one of the kinds of bags or whatever, then don't enter, because I'm not going to put in each bag as a different category. But she found new rock fabric. Look at the leaves and the rocks on that drawstring. So this one is orange fabric on the bottom, and then this one is like a metallic, probably waterproof bottomed bag. Too small, and a ton of big ones. Big tote bags. Wait until you guys see this. Look at that. So she has yarn bowls and knitting and hats, and then she found this rock fabric. It does say I Rock Knits on it, so you would be getting it from the podcast. It's got these great, this would be a perfect place to clip your keys or your lanyard from the Knitwords project. It's got pockets here, pockets here. It has a big button on the front right here that unbuttons, and then there is a pocket on the inside with a zipper. I mean, this bag could cost you $100. I'm not kidding. The time and energy, and she sent these all to me for free. This one is so cute. This is the red. Look at the bows she put on the ends of that. And I already have a red one, but I just think those bows are so cute. Pockets, it's got a cloth handle on this one, a shorter handle, and then a pocket on the inside with the zipper. Here is one with a long handle with bows. She does not make these bags for sale. She is sending bags, I don't know if I can say that. She's sending bags to a yarn store on the East Coast that has a podcast. Let me say that. Mother-daughter yarn store on the East Coast that has a podcast is getting bags from her. And then this is knit stitch fabric in orange, like a canvas handle with a button. I think that one's my favorite one. And then this one has sheep all over it and two big pockets on the front. And these, look at, they have, I mean, these will stand up and hold all of your knitting and your knitting projects. I just can't thank Sandy enough. I mean, the generosity that someone would buy fabric and make bags with rock knits on them, as well as the rock fabric, and then the knitting themed with pockets and zippers, and it is just over the top so generous. So I will probably take a picture of each one, post it in the Ravelry thread, number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, and then you can put in which one you like, you know, the best. And then that way, maybe when I draw names, I can try to give you one that is one that you would like. So you can say, I like 1, 3, and 5 or something like that. And then I will, on the next podcast, draw for winners for these bags. Thank you, Sandy. Everyone else thanks you. It was extremely generous. Sandy and I were scheduled to get together in the last year and see one another, and that has not been able to happen. So I am hoping that in 2021 there will be a possibility that we will be able to get together and I can hug her at that time for this generous gift to the podcast. Let's all give Sandy a round of applause. That was so nice of her. After last week's podcast, several of you liked the story that I told about May and May's growing up in on Park Avenue in Minneapolis. I am also going to write that up as a story and post it in multiple posts on Instagram so that you can find that and see that and read about it. I've decided that it could be kind of a Humans of New York type IG post where you tell a little story in over 7 or 8 different posts. So I think I'm going to try to do that in the next couple of weeks here. But someone, I think it was Deb, said that she appreciated my hagiography. And I was like, I don't think I know that word. And I kind of pride myself on the study of language. So here it is. Hagiography. I looked it up. The biography of saints or venerated persons, or idealizing or idolizing a biography. An account that smacks of hagiography. It's a noun. So fascinating when you're looking up, doing, you know, historical research and looking up people. And yeah, I thought, oh, I love learning a new word. So I printed it out so I could share it with all of you. I made a little purchase this week off of an Instagram ad, and I think it is so cute. Look what I bought. It came with the twine, and it came with the scissors, and it's just a little keeper. It's like what my grandma or great-grandma would have had, because they would have tied up everything because there wasn't tape. They didn't have packing tape and strapping tape and all the tape that we use now for everything but plastic products. So if they wanted to tie up a box to take it somewhere, they tied it with twine. And I think I will put a skein of yarn on here. But it was an Instagram ad, and it came from Creamore Mill, Shropshire, England. And I will put the link to where I got it in the show notes. It is creamore.co.uk, and they have a lot of these like handmade wooden accessory pieces. Amber, I already bought you one, so don't think you have to go buy this. I will put it in the mail to you. I just thought it was so cute. It can sit next to my, or it can sit in the kitchen, and your scissors would always be right there. It's a really nice quality little scissors to cut, you know, things with. I'm kind of getting into this, buy little gadget situation because I'm not shopping anywhere these days. So I just thought I would share that. Speaking of grandmothers or great-grandmothers, I have a little Corey stories for you today. I think I will keep it brief, but I have a quote folder on my computer of quotes that I want to keep, or things that inspire me, or ideas about thoughts anyway. And one of the quotes that I have in there is a quote that I want to use on a pattern going forward because it came from my great-grandma Handy. And Grandma Elsie was my mother's grandmother, but not her real grandmother. So my mom's mother died when right after my mom was born. She got pneumonia and died within 2 weeks of my mom being born. And I think I've told that story before. So my grandfather, Grandpa Ford, raised my mom for the first 2 years of her life in a boarding house of family members who helped to take care of my mom. So she had 2 aunties that took care of her, Blanche and Hazel. So if you like these old names, but they lived in a kind of a boarding house situation that my grandfather's brother or cousin something owned. And so they all, different people lived there, but mom stayed there for a while. And then my grandfather got married. He met Winifred, and he married Winnie. And that was a scandal because Winnie worked in a bar. She sang and played piano in a bar on the weekends. And so instead of being angry that the garbage truck comes every Monday when I podcast, I'm going to try to be thankful and have gratitude that I have access to a garbage truck and that I can put my garbage in my giant bin of recycling at the end of the driveway every week and someone comes and takes it away. Which is sad because then I can obviously ditch it and forget it and not think about what I might be doing to the environment by doing that. But interruption. So my mother lived with Winnie and Ford and Grandma Elsie. When they moved to Sioux Falls, my grandmother then was a manager of the dress department at Fantel's department store. And so she worked during the day. And when she married grandfather, she was 18 and he was 25. She got a 2-year-old automatically. And so Grandma Handy came with to take care of my mom. And then they went on to have 2 other children. So my mom has siblings, but technically they're step siblings. But my mom grew up in a household where Grandma Handy, Grandma Elsie, was her sole caretaker, and they shared a bedroom. And my mom shared a bed with Elsie her entire life and never thought anything of it because they lived in a smaller house and there wasn't a lot of extra room. And so that was basically her person was Grandma Elsie. And I have memories of Grandma Elsie, who eventually moved to her own apartment and lived on the side of town that I grew up on, near the drugstore that my dad had in Sioux Falls. So she was probably about 2 blocks away. Often go to the drugstore, see our dad stop and pick something up or drop something off or whatever, and then we'd go see Grandma Elsie. And I just have this quote that I want to share, and I have this memory of her being there for my mom when my mom was a little girl and had probably no idea that her mother had died, and that she was a sad orphan for those 2 years because she was surrounded by these older women who all took care of her. Anyway, this is Grandma Elsie's quote. "The harder you fall, the higher you bounce. Come up with a smiling face, for it's nothing against you to fall down flat, but to lie there, that's disgrace." And I had cross-stitched that onto a piece of fabric when I was younger, and I had it hanging in a bedroom, I believe, maybe when we were first married, and I can't find it. I don't know if, we moved to Virginia and then we moved here, and I don't know if it's in a box somewhere, but I had cross-stitched that on a little piece. And as a gymnast, that quote meant a lot to me because when you fall as a gymnast, you have to get up and do it again, repeatedly. But as a life motto, it is also a really nice quote. "The harder you fall, the higher you bounce. Come up with a smiling face, for it's nothing against you to fall down flat, but to lie there, that's disgrace." It gives me kind of goosebumps to think of the fact that was the attitude that my mom would have been raised with, and that Grandma Elsie would have said that, and that my mom would have shared it with me, and I would have kept it in my heart and my soul all this time. So anyway, there will be a pattern at some point in the next, hopefully in the next year. I am talking to yarn companies right now. I have a yarn company, 2 indie yarn dyers. I've got yarn coming. I have designs to get going here. And so hopefully it will be amongst those where I can name it for Grandma Elsie or Grandma Handy. Her husband passed away, Andy. He would have passed away of something. I'll have to ask my mom that part of the story, but that's why he wasn't in the picture. Yeah, I don't know that part. It just dawned on me that some of you could be thinking, how come she was able to go live with Grandma and Grandpa Anderson? I don't know that answer. But anyway, I have one more little update this week to share with you. I got my MRI results back last Tuesday from my doctor about my right shoulder, and I do not have any rotator cuff involvement. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't torn or damaged. They kind of want to look at the whole shoulder in the MRI. And basically what that means is that he could just do a regular shoulder replacement. He would do a 4-inch incision, go in and cut it off. I do have a collarbone issue where my collarbone goes into my shoulder joint is messy, and it would have to be scraped and tended to before it was attached in there, possibly made shorter. It didn't. You know, there is a moment in that conversation where you kind of tune out the how it's going to be done. He's told me twice the entire process, but I don't want to think about it. It's the same thing with my knee replacement. They gave me a video that I could watch. I could watch the video of what a knee replacement looks like. No, thank you. Really, if you're going to have it done, I do not need to see how it's being done. I just don't. I don't need to see how they're cutting that bone off and putting a new ball and stick in there. That's what he called it, a ball and stick. So I am not going to have the surgery. I have decided to heal. I need a crown. I need to have that done. That was scheduled for December, but that's been put on hold. I just have a little crack in that tooth. I'm just praying that it doesn't fall apart right now. I have big fillings from back in the day, and some of those teeth, you know, crack after you've had filling in them for all those years, and they want to get those old fillings out of there. Anyway, so I just said, I really want to wait. And he completely flipped his script on that. He was like, oh, I think that sounds like a great idea. You know, wait, get yourself healed. You need to be in a good, you know, mental frame of mind. And when I was in his office before, it was like, yep, we can do it anytime. There's no reason that you should wait. I was like, I've had 3 surgeries, right? I'm a little feeling like I've had a lot, you know. Your hair changes when you have surgery, you know, falls out, gets thinner, and then it has to grow back. And it's true also when you have a baby. But I think some of that's just too many drugs in your system all at one time, right? So he said he would give me 6 months. And then if I wait longer than 6 months, if I can wait, we'll see. I'm going to go see my chiropractor tomorrow and see if he can adjust it for me. He has adjusted it before, and it has felt better. So I'm going to try that. I'm having a massage on Friday, which I have not done in a long time. So I'm going to, they are masked and socially distanced, and they are doing COVID tests at the massage center. So I'm going to go have a massage on Friday, and I'll lay face down. So hopefully I'll only be exposed to the one person. Anyway, I'm just really hoping that I can put it off. If I wait longer than 6 months, I have to go in and start the process with him again, which means I would have to meet with him, and we'd have to discuss the surgery, and he would take a look at the MRI again, and you know, just you would have to do that touch base thing again. Probably wouldn't have to have another MRI, but would just go through the process of how I was going to have it done. So I'm just going to hang in there and see if I can get by. There are moments in my day where I think I can't lift it and I can't use it and it hurts. God darn it, that just really hurt putting that coat on, and so I should have it done. And then there are times in my day like now where I'm like, it's not even bothering me. So it's just too big a surgery to take on right now. I have too many things I want to do, and I want the world to get well. The world needs to have a surgery and heal. We can fix so many other things, right? I want to give a big shout out to several of you who have so generously donated to my Ko-fi account. Ko-fi is a place on the internet where you can send someone a couple of dollars for their time or their energy, or something that they did for you just to thank them. I set up an account because someone asked me to, and several of you went over and you were very generous. It was really nice of you, and I will use it to have a fountain pop from the local gas station because that is such a big treat to me. My husband will often go out in the afternoon and get a fountain pop for each of us to have as an afternoon treat, just to get out of the house sometimes, but it was just really kind of you. So if you are at all interested in doing that for me, that is greatly appreciated. You just go to www.ko-fi.com. I rock knits. Let's do the hellos this week and wrap it up. Hello to Jennifer Page, Janet Holler, and Nana Beth, who commented about the Wallaby sweater. A lot of you had comments about the Wallaby sweater last week and really liked it. Many of you have knit it, and some of you went and looked it up. But she knows Carol Anderson, who wrote the Wallaby sweater and talked about how she was such a wonderful teacher and such a wonderful person. And that was just a really nice note to get from her. And then hello to Samantha Knott, Brandy Stoker, Jas Conrad, who asked a question in the show notes comments last week about ball winders. And so if you have an opinion about ball winders and swifts, could you go out and look at Jas Conrad's comment? She's asking for information about what to buy, which one to get. I left her a comment, but I thought some of you would also maybe like to do that in episode 67. Velda Lacoste, hi to Georgia and Cheryl Lacemaker and Jean Wisniewski and Victoria Knits and Glenda Bathgate and Rachel Weisenstein and Julie Smith, who really enjoyed the history of Park Avenue and told me a little bit of a story, which was really nice to read. Some of you should go out and read the comments. If you ever have time, read everyone else's comments because there are some just really good tidbits in there. I really enjoy reading those. And that Annette Willis said that she was having trouble finding the show notes. And I don't get a lot of people reaching out for the show notes, so I forget to mention it. The show notes are in my Ravelry group, and you have to go to Ravelry and then go to the community tab and drag down to groups and then type in I Rock Knits, and then it will come up, and then it has threads, and down in the listing it will say episode 66, episode 67, episode 68, and it will say show notes. It will also have all the recipes that I've ever talked about on the podcast with a link, and you can go and copy and paste the recipe and print it out. It will have a link of every audiobook. So if you just want a list of books, you could copy and paste from that first. I just edit every week and add the audiobook list of all, and you could cross off the ones that you've read or circle the ones you might be interested in. It also would have the sweater of the week every week, the shawl of the week if I do one. I usually just try to keep that to two. You know, I either talk about a shawl or a sweater. And then if I do a design, I drop one or the other just to keep it a little bit shorter in that section. But it would have that list. It would have every podcast recommendation I've ever made. So if you're looking for podcasts, there's a huge list of podcasters out there and their names of their podcasts. So that's all listed there. And then in the box below this podcast on YouTube, maybe I'll try to do a picture, but if you click on it with your mouse on your computer or touch underneath in that box on your iPad or your phone, it will open up. It just drops down, and then we can type stuff in there. So we can say, you know, how you can link to me or my podcast, or all my notes are in there, anything I've talked about. And so people often say it's in the box, but it's not showing up. So it's not like you can see it. So every time someone says that, we assume that you know that you either have to click it with your mouse or touch it with your fingers for it to open, and it drops down and shows you everything that we've typed in there. I told Annette how to get to the show notes and gave her a link, but if you have wondered about where all that stuff is, it is on Ravelry and in the drop-down box. Cheryl Clute. Cheryl, is your name Shirley? Do you pronounce that E at the end? I will feel really bad if I've been saying it wrong. I don't think you comment every week, but I know I've read your name before. So it's S-H-E-R-Y-L-E, Shirley. It's gotta be, and I'm reading it as Cheryl, but it could be Cheryl. So let me know, okay? Hi to Olivia Mankey and Eileen Tamero, Pamela Henley, Pat Wagner, Melanie Cahoon, Crochet Creations by Christy, Scrabble Hounds, who also really liked talking about the wallaby with me, Ann D., Linda Bowman, Joan Howard, Deb Vandermolen, Zoe Leask, who liked the history that we went through last week and gave me some, talked about a history thing that happened in her family, I think. Victoria Pileski, who liked the cereal bag liner tip that I gave last week and said that she uses it to do potatoes in the microwave. Great idea. And then Ann Yamada says she uses those cereal bags for pounding out chicken breasts. I love that. I'm really loving following Nancy Birtwistle and all of her green and clean hacks and making things better for the environment. You know, I told Ross the other day, when you buy, I write Pam cooking spray. I write Pam on the grocery list. That does not mean that you buy Pam an aerosol. And he said, why do you write it then? And I said, because I don't want to write out, buy a spray oil bottle with not aerosol in it. You should just know that I don't want to use the aerosol can. We had this conversation in the car. Do you have these conversations with your husband sometimes where you're just like, just know that it's easier and quicker for me to write Pam. I know what I mean. I used to do all the grocery shopping. Now you're doing it and you're buying the wrong thing. Okay. So, pounding chicken breasts and baking potatoes in the microwave, cereal bag liner. Debbie McKenzie, Pat Kohler, Miranda Wouters, Hugh Brutz, Susie Fab, Holly Isaac, Kat Gore, Ma Buchanan, 818. Who's Knitting Mary B? How did I not get that connection, Knit Mary? Who I know in real life and have spent time with in Arizona. I did not know that your YouTube name was Ma Buchan, B-U-C-H-A-N. I'm saying that wrong. And then it's probably Mab Buchan or something that I'm just not even getting right. I spend too much time thinking about these names. Okay, hi to Terry Monk and Janet Robertson and Courtney Lancaster and Kathy B. and Patty Skaggs and Danielle Brown, Carol Morrison, Michelle of Knit Takes Two, Connie S., Heather Wilson, Angela Jenkins, Stitch and Amy, Peggy Bork, Polly Knits, Judith Muscroft, Jessie's Mom 12, Margarita Deverson, Libby Neal, Robin Gasser, Joan Bell, Kathy Goodman, Pat Howes, Mary B., Luana Hendricks, who had me have a little realization last week. She said, helping people comes from the teacher in you. And that is so true. You don't become a teacher if you don't want to help kids or help people. And so you have a helping gene, and I have the helping gene. So thank you so much for that, Luana. Hello to Candy Harris, and then to Sweet Nell on Ravelry. She is Sarah in Des Moines, Iowa, and she left a message over on Ravelry, and I always do go over and look at those messages and chat with people over there too, so you do not have to leave a comment in the down box. If you want to chat with me on Ravelry or on Instagram, feel free to do that as well. I love having followers in all the places. That is just absolutely fine with me. That's all I've got for you this week. I tried to get it done quickly and it still ended up being well over an hour. But until next time, waddle on, no green bananas. You'll never regret ripping back. Don't complain with your mouth full. Keep your fork. Bye. Love you all.